Welcome to the Monkey Business Podcast. Happy New Year. I'm Eric Salzman, joined with Richie Bennett and Kevin Doherty. Guys, good to see you in the new year.
Yeah,
Happy New
good to
Year.
see you.
Happy
Happy
New
New
Year,
Year.
everybody. And let's go right to Richie with some important PolyMart news.
Mhm.
So we talk about a lot about the PolyMarket and Kalshi, all these prediction markets. And the first thing that I thought of when I saw this bit of news was my mom back in the day saying, "This is why we can't have nice things." Meaning, so Maduro gets taken out the other day, right? About 6 hours before he gets taken out, maybe 12, these three mysterious accounts get opened on the Poly market, and they bet not crazy amounts of money, but one guy bet 34 grand. And the chances of the question was, will Maduro be out by January 31st? And this was January 3rd, right? So this guy bets 34,000 at 6 cents a contract, which if it happens, he gets paid $1 per contract, right? So that's 16 to 1, roughly, more than 16 to 1. 6 hours later, it happens. Three mysterious accounts. So back in the old days, when the sports books in Nevada used to claim that no, games aren't fixed because we can tell, we can report when we see unusual activity in betting, right? So this is what happened January 3rd after Maduro got taken. I'm guessing those accounts haven't been paid, but as they investigate. But it comes to the point where it's like, okay, and we were talking about this earlier, like I knew this was going to happen, right? This is just it's not like a live sporting event. It's, what would have been interesting is if they went in and didn't get it, right? Like something was bad. So that guy would have lost, right? But they, let's retrack a little. They used to never, and I think they do now, but like the Oscars, you couldn't bet on the Oscars. Why? Because somebody knew, somebody opened that envelope before the show, right? So somebody knew who won. And if he calls Cousin Joe and says, hey, you want to bet on the Oscars tonight, this is how it's going to work, right? So it clearly points to the fact that maybe they'll trace it, they'll figure it out. But maybe somebody on the inside of the Defense Department, who knows? Like somebody knew this. Like it was just weird to have three different accounts show up, set up new accounts, and just bet that. Like they should have bet the basketball that night, just to show, I'm spreading it around.
You remember, Richie, when you talked about, I think when you were talking about crypto a couple episodes ago, and you said that like a huge amount of the actual crypto betting or trading was taking place in military, like
Yes, yes.
there you go.
So there's a connection there. Yeah, maybe, perhaps.
So it's also interesting that people who are proponents of these prediction markets, they say, look, part of the reason why these will work is that people who are closer to these situations that are, real experts will be incentivized when they see markets that they think are out of whack to go in and put a position on and potentially move the market towards a more realistic estimate of how things are going to unfold. And there's a fine line between yes, that, and yeah, I know that helicopters are taking off in 6 hours. Let's go make a few $100,000. Yeah.
Who took the other side of this? Like, is there
That's a
Exactly.
good question.
So we talked about this too, right? It's not like, so let's pick again, sports books, right? So we're really showing here that gambling and prediction markets are probably the same thing, right?
Mm.
Although the Kalshi guys would disagree with that and PolyMarket guys disagree with that. But, you have situations where the house, if it's some obscure game, right, that the house has put a line on, right? The greatest line ever, though, is the player, when they're betting sports, doesn't have to play. The house has to play. So they put lines up on all these games. And if there's one obscure game right? That pick any sport, and some guy really likes it, and he bets 10 grand on it. There's more than a real chance that the house is not going to be able to get the other side of that bet, so they're on the hook, right? Like they lose. That's real risk for them. They're just hoping that the guy's wrong. But if they don't get it right, and to go further on that point, they rarely, with what we used to call back in the day, a balanced book. They rarely have a balanced book in these sports books, right? They're always a little bit of risk, right? They try to move the lines to get people, just like in the stock market, prices go up, there's more buyers, blah, 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 go down if there's less. But on these prediction markets, it's not a sports book, right? Somebody had the other side of that trade, somebody's, and they got burned. Those are going to be the guys who complain because they're going to say, somebody had insider information, that's why I lost. But somebody definitely lost, and it wasn't PolyMarket.
So you don't think that there'd be any situation where those guys would step in and they would actually the exchange? It's an exchange, right? So it couldn't take the other side. It can't.
Right. So no. So those bets, or sorry, investments. Those investments couldn't have been placed on PolyMarket or Kalshi unless there was another side to take the opposite way. So they just wouldn't. So how it works, right? If you have a PolyMarket account or Kalshi account and you see something and you're like, oh, I want to bet on that, or sorry, invest in that, they won't fill your order until somebody has the other side. Whereas if you go to the window in Nevada or on your app on hardrockbet.com or whatever, you get done immediately. You're done. You like that number, you're done. You're done. So somebody had to take, it was when you took the three accounts in this instance with Maduro, it was, I think it was the total of 65 grand amongst the three accounts. So somebody stood up and said, this is easy money. I'm going to make 65 grand off these jokers. If in 4 weeks from now, this clown is still sitting in the palace in Caracas. And
Kevin, do you think
that guy had a tough night?
You remember that? I think you sent an article around a few weeks ago and you were talking about how, call them the smart guys or the math guys. They're happy to take the other side of somewhat of a sure thing, meaning that people who gamble are going to always want the tails, and therefore they're happy to come in and so basically they buy those cheap and they sell the tails expensive. You think that could have been kind of what was at work here?
Yeah, it could be. It's like a merger arb fund, right? Where these guys are just they're spreading their bets, so they're not putting 40% of their assets at risk on a single one of these instances, but 1%, why not?
Sure.
Yeah. And it springs to mind too. I saw an article today where they just asked random people on the street, whatever, maybe people that work in the markets, what are the chances of a 30% drop in the S&P this year? And 30% of people said, yeah, it could happen. But these are just random folks, right? The guys who are putting money down, real money, buying options, what have you, the number is more like 10%.
Mm-hmm.
So who's right? Who knows? But usually it's the guy, if you're putting your money down, that's different than saying, yeah, I think there's going to be a drop.
Yeah, I think actually that I read that. I think that was there was an article about it in Barron's yesterday, and the guys that were saying 30%, it wasn't just it was random, like Richie said, but also it was some it was all academics, right?
Yes, there was a lot of Yale. Yes.
And I was thinking that was kind of our discussion last podcast was, it's when you got to speak with your own money, all of a sudden, that's probably more likely outcome than the guy who says 30%.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think, it's going to be interesting because now this is going to get found out, this Maduro thing with this money, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm the guy who's shorting this wager I'm pissed, right? I'm like that was definitely. So there's an investigation going to go on. It'll be interesting to see what happens though if they find these guys guilty or whoever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll trace it. And does that hurt the prediction markets, right? Like, do you step in front of a moving train, right? Like it's hard for those who want to take the other side of some of these things if they feel like it's rigged, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody knows something, right? So here's another good example. I saw today, I think it was PolyMarket. They posted today's, they always do like hey, this is what's going on in the markets, our prediction markets. But the Fed, the new Fed chairman, who will be the new Fed chairman, right? So like they had different, and the two Kevins, Warsh and what's his name? The other guy. Yeah. We're talking 40%, right? But if you're sitting in a meeting, they were tied at 40. I think, I forget who was third. And then somebody random was like fourth. But if you're in a meeting with the president and he's like talking and you can tell like he hasn't picked, but they claim he knows, right? If you hear that, you're like, okay, again, call Cousin Joe. I can't put this down because then I definitely get in trouble. But hey, Cousin Joe, you wanted to buy that new Escalade. I think it's going to be Warsh. You know, like something like that, right? So if I'm a player in that, you know, I'm interested in that market, maybe I don't play anymore, right? Maybe I'm like, this is all rigged. I can't do this.
If it's the same account that got the Venezuela Maduro thing right, then you're like, oh, okay, it's username
guys, this is what our Congress. This is what our congressmen and women have been doing for decades, right? I mean, and we found out that federal judges were doing it with cases in front of them. We found out that the Fed does it. We found out that the heads of the senior people in the FTC and the other, that heavily regulate business do it. So maybe now there's a crackdown on that. This is a loophole.
Yeah.
No one said anything about I can't go out and do it in a prediction market.
Right. I don't know. I mean, I find it funny too. Like you said, like my daughter is now in the financial markets, and like she has this like cash account somewhere else that's not at her firm, and like the hoops she has to run through. Like I set it up for her, right? Yeah. The hoops she has to run through. Little analyst, my daughter, to like change this account to somewhere else. It's in cash, right? She doesn't hold stocks in this one account, but like the people at her firm are like, you have to move it to this account now, like now, log in now. And there's nothing. So on the Wall Street side, there's heavy regulation against this insider trading. And then like their pals down in Congress can just go and buy anything they want. While talking to the Wall Street guys, right? Like this. What do you got today? Okay, yeah, that one. Okay, I mean, too bad you can't do this.
So the president's been he's been very active in our news, I would say. First of all, it was interesting. I didn't realize this, but when who was it before Maduro?
Chavez.
When Chavez came in, he nationalized the oil industry. And a number of our major oil producers, explorers and exploration and production, lost billions of dollars. So it seems like this is a pretext now, because what's essentially, I think now they could say, look, that was our money. You took it. We're taking it back. And I think they're trying to work it out. So it looks like, well, we're not really stealing it. We're just gonna, we're gonna take back what was ours already. You guys owe us billions of dollars, and it's time to pay that back. But what Trump said yesterday was he was talking about a $50 barrel of oil, and that doesn't necessarily work for the energy.
That's a problem for a lot of these guys, right? The oil producers, they don't want that number.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting.
I mean, I just drove outside. I haven't seen $2 in 63 cents in a long time. I can remember that. And
Hmm.
that's what a gallon is today at my local gas station. So it's going down, which is, like I remember when it got way down in his first term. I think it got to like $1.50 or $1.60. And like the first thing he said at one of those rallies, how do you like your tax cut? Right. And everybody cheers, right? Because in their pockets, that's real money, right? That everybody uses gas,
Hmm.
not an electric car. But and that leaves more money to spend on other goods and such. But yeah, it's not great for the oil company. So, like you saw like immediately Chevron went up when Maduro got taken, right?
Hmm.
But the next day it was down
Right.
because people are like, well, yeah, but if the price is a lot lower, that doesn't help them. Maybe they don't frack baby frack
Yeah,
because
I think that's like the shutdown level where
right.
they start losing money. I think it's higher than 50 actually.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, what's interesting is though is that so apparently I didn't know this either because I should know this, but the refineries that we have along the Gulf Coast, it's all set up for that heavy crude that Venezuela has.
Right. And that's like a special thing because Canada produces a lot of oil, obviously, but it's not well received around the world, right? We can
Mhm.
use it, but it's that lighter, sweeter crude. They want the heavier stuff, and that's what Venezuela has.
So we won't be invading Canada anytime soon.
No, I don't think so.
The other thing, so there were two other, Eddie kind of, I think he came out, it was right before I think it was right after the market closed, so at least he spared us that. He talked about two things, which is interesting because they really seem to be the stuff that you'd expect, Bernie Sanders and AOC to be jumping up and down about. And one is that he wants to stop corporate landlords. He wants to stop Blackstone and Cerberus and the large private equity firms that have been buying up. I think I don't think Cerberus has hit 100,000 homes yet, but I think Blackstone is over that amount. If you guys know, so they own a tremendous amount of the single family first time home buyer type. 15, 16,000, 100 square feet, three bedrooms, one and a half baths, carport. Pretty much because when I lived in Texas, it goes right from South Texas, kind of straight up along, to the border and to the Canadian border. And I know they do a lot in Florida, but I don't know what do you guys think about that? Because I don't know how he would actually achieve that.
Yeah, I don't know how they can do that. I mean, also involved in that, which is funny, is the recently retired Oracle of Omaha. He has Innovation Homes, I think he owns. They've
Oh
been
yeah.
they bought up tons of it too. So he sees the value in that. And what they do, right? They buy the homes and then make them rentals
Hmm.
properties and clean them up a little, and somebody goes in and rents them. But that just keeps the supply tighter,
Yep.
and nobody, prices go up, and nobody can afford a home. I don't know how you can do that other than you know can you make a law where like you have to be a owner occupant, like if you were buying this home, but that kind of like individuals do that. I've done
Sure.
it. I'm not a big corporation, but I'll buy a rental house, a property to rent. I don't know how you get around doing that. Like,
Right.
and it's not gonna, you're not gonna pass a law like that, not in America.
Hmm.
I like the intent. I mean, it does seem, not everything needs to be a marketplace where we're just, pushing the price higher and higher. And obviously, there's an affordability problem
Right.
for first-time home buyers. And maybe if he were to do something and use the bully pulpit to kind of pressure these companies a little bit, say, look, if Blackstone wants to go out and develop and build a bunch of single family homes, knock yourself out, go for
Right.
it. Because now
Right.
you're creating something. But if it's just going and using their lower cost of capital to basically sweep up, tens or hundreds of thousands of houses from the market, I, I, it'd be nice to see that stop.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And if that ever happened, like they would not participate, right? Like Blackstone wouldn't be like, yeah, we're not in that business.
No,
We'll leave that up to Toll Brothers and the
yeah,
other.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was, I haven't seen, yeah, because you think that, and the other one that he did, it came out, I think right at the same time as he came out and said that defense contractors, especially the ones who have massive overages and delays and, backlogs, uh, he doesn't want them paying dividends or, paying dividends or doing stock buybacks.
Right.
Uh,
And that one I think can stick. Like
yes,
that
that one
one
he has.
because that's pretty easy for him to do because he could then say, uh, oh, you're still buying back stock and paying dividends to shareholders. Yeah, you can't be in this new bidding thing for our big build out of rockets or you're not allowed. Like you disobeyed me and therefore you're out of the proceedings. Goodbye. Right. So I think he could do that overnight.
But yeah, wondering where all where's the left standing up and cheering him for that, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's actually like that kind of harkens back to World War II stuff,
Yeah.
right? Like when they were getting ready to like make like all the car assembly plants like changed into you're making weapons, you're not making cars, right? Like like this is what we're doing. This is a war machine, and I think because of that precedent, he could easily do that one.
hmm But of course, yeah, right after that, he made a comment that he wants to increase the military budget by 50%. So,
Wow.
so I think actually that like I know Raytheon and a bunch of the big contractors are rallying today.
Yeah, up
Also,
huge. Yeah.
um, good stuff. All right, Kevin, let us
Yes.
tell us what's going on in your world.
Yeah, there's three interesting things in crypto land. The first is that the MSCI, which is Morgan Stanley Capital International, they run investment indices globally, and I think they're the biggest one of these index creators. And institutional investors often have mandates where they have to track or at least closely replicate what these MSC indices are. And one of the companies that is, and so these companies, if you're in the MSCI index, you're going to get a lot of passive investment from institutional investors. And one company that's in some of the MSCI indices that's received quite a bit of this passive investment is our old friend Michael Saylor and Strategy. And on October 10th of this past year, so what, almost 3 months ago, and that date should, for people who are closely following the crypto market, that date is significant because that was the peak of the Bitcoin price and every other crypto price almost. That things went straight down afterwards. It was also the date that Trump announced these new tariffs on China, which shook up the markets. But also on that date, MSCI announced that they were going to review whether crypto treasury companies should be allowed in the MSCI indices. So basically, they were threatening we're going to kick MicroStrategy and all these other companies out. And that they announced they were going to review this and make a decision by January 15th. And they came out yesterday and said, we haven't made a final decision, but we're going to pause on taking any action for a while. So this thing, it's been kind of held over the market a little bit because the fear has been that MSCI would say that no, crypto treasury companies cannot be on our index. We're kicking out MicroStrategy, and then you'd get somewhere around $3 billion of institutional capital that would be selling the MicroStrategy stock that they owned in their portfolio. So $3 billion worth of MicroStrategy. That did not happen. That announcement came the other day. MicroStrategy rallied a little bit, but not that much. And right now it's still, but before the announcement, it was trading about a 1% premium to the value of its Bitcoin. Now it's at a 5% premium to the value of its Bitcoin. Not a big move. So it's still, it's early in the year, obviously. We've talked about what sort of big catalyst might come this year. That was one that could have been a negative catalyst. Second thing that's happened or that's upcoming, actually also on January 15th, so a week from today, as we're recording this, is the U.S. Senate has scheduled what's called a markup session for the banking and agriculture committees to review their versions of the Clarity Act. And the Clarity Act is something that we talked about as a big deal for crypto going forward because it will set the regulatory framework in the United States for cryptocurrencies and say, here's what the SEC's uh, obligations are and oversight. And here's what the CFTC's oversight is. Here's what the companies are going to be allowed to do, not allowed to do. Are we going to set up a sandbox to allow some of these new companies to operate in a light regulatory environment while they have just a low number of customers or low AUM? But so it's a big deal because there is no regulatory framework for crypto in the US right now, and this would establish that. And so the Senate is due to meet, and the expectation is that the committees will come to agreement on what the bill will look like, bring it to the full Senate for a vote, and that should be a positive catalyst for the market. Now, Congress already passed their version of the Clarity Act back in July. So, assuming that there is movement on this, it could result in sometime before the end of the first quarter a full Clarity Act being approved, which is there is a deadline on this because the conventional wisdom is because it's an election year, you got to get legislation passed early in the year because as we get close to the election, Congress and Senate basically just sit on their asses and they don't want to do anything controversial. And so there's been some fears that there wouldn't be enough time to get this done, but it looks like that may in fact happen. So
Does it have like kind of bipartisan support?
uh,
Or
it it did in Congress, interestingly. So the congressional vote, it was something like I'll get the exact number wrong, but it was like 293 for and 135 against. So there were a lot of Democrats that crossed over and supported it. And there is bipartisan support in the Senate, but there are also some senators who, like Elizabeth Warren, but she's against anything crypto related, that want to add in some sort of protections that basically she's not happy that Trump and Trump Co. have been able to make so much money in the crypto market and wants some sort of restrictions, language, et cetera, that would address that. Whether that's going to stall the legislation or not, we'll see. I think that I actually should have checked PolyMarket before coming on to see if they have a market on this.
Oh, they
Because
have a market on anything.
yeah, that we'll maybe while I'll tease the end of this call, Richie's going to give us his NFL playoff picks. Maybe while he's doing that, I'll see if I can find a market on whether the Clarity Act is going to pass or not.
okay.
But
Great
then
stuff.
there's one final thing to add to the Venezuela theme to the call. So there is been a lot of chatter and speculation this week in the crypto market that Maduro and those around him are sitting on an enormous Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency stockpile. And it's definitely known that Venezuela was using stable coins, specifically USDT, which is kind of the offshore, less regulated one, to do all the international trade that they needed to do because of the US sanctions that were preventing them from going through normal banking channels. And there were also a lot of speculation over the years that they were accumulating Bitcoin with some of those USDT. So they would sell the oil to China or wherever else, in exchange for USDT and then buy Bitcoin with that. There've been some people that have done some sleuthing around the Bitcoin blockchain to try and find this Bitcoin. Estimates are that it could be as high as 60 billion US dollars worth. But the thing, of course, with Bitcoin is it's the owner of it is the one who has the code that enables them to move the Bitcoin. And if Maduro has, the keys to a lot of that Bitcoin, then, that gives him some leverage, which could be kind of interesting. If Maduro's cronies have the control of that, and I would say that's definitely possible. There's only him and his wife. I mean, surely there's one of their inner circle that might know that those passwords as well. If I were them, I would be selling that Bitcoin as fast as I could right
Yes.
now. And so there's a lot of speculation and no hard evidence yet, but it's something that to pay attention to in the coming weeks.
Yeah, we don't want to see any enhanced interrogation tactics going on.
Yeah.
All right.
And
Well,
or I should say, if you are Venezuelan and you happen to know a certain password and you're not quite sure what to do with it, give us a call. We'll help.
good stuff. All right. Richie, tell us what's going to happen in the NFL this weekend.
Well, before the NFL, there is the college. The college playoffs are one game tonight, one game tomorrow. So they've already sent out, I've gotten an email. So the final game in the college will be held at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, which is actually Fort Lauderdale where the stadium is, but they call it Miami. The Miami Hurricanes are playing tonight against Ole Miss. Tomorrow, the Indiana quarterback, Indiana plays Oregon. The Indiana quarterback went to high school and played high school football in Miami. If Miami and Indiana make this game, the experts, and I trust them, say that those tickets for that game will be more pricier than the Super Bowl this year.
Oof.
I can believe it because, whatever, 75,000 seat stadium. The University of Miami hasn't been a champion in 20 plus years. This kid's from Miami. It could happen. So, but we're talking about the playoffs, and I think I hear the ghost of Jim Mora. Tell me if you can hear this.
Talk about playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game. Another game.
The ghost of Jim Mora. So last time we chatted, the Big Dick's picks, I thought of the great philosopher, entertainer, actor even, Marvin Lee Aday said this famously. Oh, Marvin Lee Aday, you might not know him. That was his birth name. When he was younger, notice I didn't say littler, because this guy I don't think was ever little. He was playing in the Pop Warner football, and I think he was like 5'7", 200 pounds at like age 8. And he fell on his coach in a drill, his football coach. And the football coach said, "Get off me. You feel like a big piece of meatloaf." And that fella, Marvin Lee Aday, later in life, changed his name to Meatloaf. And his great philosophy was 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So the last time we talked, we went 2 out of 3, and that ain't bad. Now we have 5 picks today.
Ooh.
5. 2 college, 3 NFL. The college. Miami, as I said, plays Ole Miss tonight, as we're recording this January 8th. They keep talking about Miami's great front seven. Front seven on the defense. Very good, very good. I don't know who is on the offensive line of Ole Miss, and it's a great story of Ole Miss if you haven't heard it. Their coach left to go to LSU, but he left some of the staff to coach Ole Miss. So he left basically before their playoff run to take the job at LSU. Craziest thing ever. Crazier is in his contract for LSU is he's getting a bonus every time Ole Miss wins. So he just got another $500,000 because Ole Miss won the game that he didn't coach last week. So they talk about Miami's front seven. Georgia has a pretty good front seven, and they have for a long time. Georgia's defense is very good, University of Georgia. If you look at NFL rosters all over, there's a lot of Georgia guys. Like I said, I don't know who's on the offensive line at Ole Miss, but I think they're pretty good because Ole Miss has played Georgia twice this year. They have thrown 82 passes, 82 pass attempts. They went to pass. Georgia sacks, 0.
Wow.
So, and I'm in South Florida, and people are talking about the defense a lot around here. And I'm like, yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. The spread is 3.5. I'm going with Ole Miss. Indiana plays Oregon the next day, Friday night in Atlanta. These two teams played each other in a chilly game in Oregon in October. Indiana ended up winning 30-20, right? That was a big game for them to show like they could compete on the road against a good team. Somehow, some way, I feel like maybe it's a sucker bet, but probably not. The total points in this game on Friday is 46.5, meaning the over-under is 46.5. If you bet on that line, you're betting on the total points scored by both teams. I can't understand why in a non-chilly environment, meaning indoors in a dome, on turf, and with NFL QB scouts all over the place, because the word is these two guys squaring off, the Indiana quarterback, Mendoza, the Oregon quarterback, Moore, could be the first 2 picks in the NFL draft. I think there's fireworks. I think they light it up. I'm going over. Over in that game, over 46.5. So now we got Ole Miss plus 3.5, over 46.5, Indiana, Oregon. Saturday starts the NFL playoffs. Playoffs. So the night game is the Bears and the Packers. Rarely do you see two teams play 3 times in a year. You never see it happen in like a month, which is what happened. So they played in early December, middle of December, and now they're playing in the playoffs. It's a funny line. It's like a 1-point line either way, so nobody knows, blah, blah, blah. But what I do know, and what everybody will soon know, it's going to be about 28 degrees and winds blowing like 20 miles an hour. So the total point spread, the total over-under, I think is 46.5. I'll be going under on that one. Then you have, shockingly to me, San Francisco is at Philadelphia, the Niners are at Philadelphia. In Brock Purdy's career, Brock Purdy's QB 49ers, he has only been an underdog 4 times. 4. That's amazing to me. What is his record in those 4 games? 0-4. So they're also missing their left tackle, Trent Williams, probably. Let's go with the Eagles. I think it's -5. They're favored, but I think the Eagles can take care of business at home. Finally, Monday night. I don't know how they stretch these things out all the time, but Houston Texans are at Pittsburgh, the Steelers. Houston is favored by 3.5. Don't know why. Because I know that the Steelers, the last 24 games on Monday Night Football, are 23-1.
Wow.
And I think the one is the game during COVID where there were no fans. So I'm perplexed by this line, but we're going with the Steelers. So here we go. Almost tonight, +3.5. Over Indiana, Oregon, Friday. Saturday, under Bears, Packers. Saturday night. Sunday, Eagles. Monday, Steelers. Let's see. I think we
Super
can do
Bowl
better
pick?
than. I think we can do better than 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Do you have
All
the
right.
Super Bowl pick?
Not yet.
2 teams? No.
Not yet. I think, but I know you're a big Seahawks guy, Kevin. So I think they got a nice chance. And and I'm a huge Sam Darnold fan. So
Yeah.
because he was a Jet guy, but it's because he is capable. That's what I like. Like he's a capable quarterback with a fantastic defense. That's usually a good recipe.
I did buy some Seahawks Super Bowl futures earlier this season on PolyMarket.
There we go. Everything
I'm
revolves
definitely-
around PolyMarket.
Yeah.
And the last thing, Richie, is you mentioned the 2 great quarterbacks that will be going at each other in the Oregon Indiana game.
Yes.
One of them, unfortunately, is probably going to go to the Jets, right? The
Yes.
killer of all.
Although I heard, I early on, like they still have to have the combine and all that stuff, but early on, it looks like the Raiders, like Tom Brady is a part owner of the Raiders now. I think they like this kid Mendoza from Indiana. I think they're going to take him. Somebody told me that the agent for Moore, who's the Oregon guy who's second, is calling. This is crazy, but probably true. The agent is calling Tom Brady and the Raiders, asking if there's any chance this kid Moore could get picked first by the Raiders. Otherwise, he is going to stay again in Oregon.
He's going to play baseball like John Elway.
He doesn't want to play on the Jets.
Maybe they could they should start, like his own people should start a rumor about him that, like back in the day, famously, when Dan Marino
Right.
was being drafted, there were rumors that he had a problem with the nose candy.
His nickname, right? Candy Nose Dan.
Yeah, so he slipped way farther down the draft than was expected, and then amazingly went to Miami, and
in the 80s.
Yeah, a place you don't think would be conducive to dealing, send him to, I don't know, Kansas City. But anyway, it worked out very well for him. So
yeah, and it was crazy too because he went to Pitt. Marino went to the University of Pittsburgh. The Steelers passed on him and allowed Miami to get him.
Rest is history.
All right, guys. Good stuff. And good luck, players, and we'll see you all next week.
See ya.